I tried 3 times by myself with Wyatt. We tried putting some netting up, and what has happened is I need Aaron and Caleb to actually fence in the chickens because they are destroying everything. Let me show you. Welcome to Modern Homestead Alaska. We are Aaron and Jessica Milnes. We are building a modern homestead outside of Wasilla, Alaska, with the help of 3 of our children. Our second son, Caleb, our daughter, Cody Ann, and the youngest of our family, Wyatt, along with our 3 dogs, Tipper and Daisy, and the newest addition, Roberto. Okay, so anywhere the chickens can get, they have mutilated. So I ended up putting some netting up here and these posts, because in the middle of planting the garden, I saw the chickens pecking. And look, I pulled several dead leaves off there. I'll have to mend that. We're hiding the raspberries that need to get planted. And then in this garden bed, or this pot, this chive overwintered, which is so strange, but the chickens just peck and eat it every single chance they can get. Even the pots in the garden, if they can reach through the fence, they do. So, although this is not perfect, it's just straight into the forest, I need help putting some sort of fencing in to keep the chickens in here and letting them still free range, but letting things grow.
Jessica.
Okay, how many would you like me to get?
All.
Let's bring them down. Here's the stapler too.
With staples?
With staples. Go me.
Now you gotta stick another post there to hold that down. Load. Are you just being down to the lake?
No, this is how far we're going this direction.
Tie it.
All right. On a side note, it is finally mosquito season and beautiful out. It has done nothing but rain on us. I want to show you a little bit of what it's been like in the garden. Let's jump to that now. Oh, Alaska strikes. Let me just tell you, I have some big issues in my garden and I wanted to share with you. First, let's talk the beds. I still have one of the 8 beds that is unplanted. On Monday, the holiday, Aaron and I had finished everything and it started to dump rain. And it has not stopped raining. Now, sometimes it's a little bit sprinkly. On Tuesday, I had gone for my massage and some other things, and it was sunny at like 7, 8 o'clock at night and not raining. It is so wet. It is so wet that we have standing water outside of the garden. The garden itself is doing really well, and the plants are really starting to spark up. So, like the celery is beautiful. The cold weather crops such as broccoli and cauliflower and cabbages and so on, they're doing really well. The kale is looking good. So anything along those lines is looking good. Everything, obviously, we did a good job of hardening off before we planted these. And then it was so dry that I would come out and go to dig in the beds, and the beds would be super dry. So I did put some straw down to help hold in some moisture, and now we've gotten nothing but moisture since I did that. So fortunately, we have good soil, good compost, and enough of it is running off. The garden is at enough of a slope that I don't have any standing water in the garden. Here's the problem. These are the plants that are still needing to be planted in this one bed. And you can see, especially over there, look at that, the amount of water that, so I just have these plants out here. The amount of water is crazy. The other thing is I need to feed all of this, especially we have the tomatoes and the peppers under the plastic over here. I'll show you that. Which thank goodness Aaron had built me this trellis and then we plasticed it. I've lost a few tomatoes. Some are unhappy. The peppers are looking really good. I have 4 gallons of compost tea. You're supposed to dilute it. Well, you can feed it straight, but it's meant to be diluted. Well, with the amount of rain that we're getting, I think I'm gonna go through and feed these undiluted compost tea and then feed those in there that are not actually getting rained on, diluted compost tea. So let me get that done, and then I'm at the point of saying, do we even worry about seeds or anything in this bed? Because digging in there and planting seeds and carrots and all that has just become, I don't even know. But I need to get these onions and stuff in the ground. So I'm at the point of saying maybe celery, maybe onions, maybe the cold weather crops, and then just calling this bed good. Just to get the stuff in the ground. Roots can spread out. I don't know. What are your thoughts? What are your thoughts? Let me know in the comment section, but let's figure out what we can get done today. So to mix up compost tea, it's a 1 to 5. Ellie, who was my instructor in school, got the compost tea from her. Compost tea really takes like some equipment and some like attention to detail, I guess. Like gets all sticky in there and what have you. And Ellie makes it on like a very large scale for even businesses and so on around here. So I just buy it from her instead of trying to make it myself. But yeah, it's really nice because you can dilute it 3 to 1, 5 to 1. But what we're really focusing on in my garden this year is not like synthetic fertilizers or fertilizers at all, even though we fertilize the garden. What we're looking for is microbes. We want an active living environment for the food to grow in. We want the good bugs and the good pollinators and all of those things living in the soil. And then part of the square foot gardening method is things that need really deep root systems. They pull different stuff up out of the ground, and then things with really short root systems. So take a carrot versus a radish. They're at different levels in the soil, bringing nutrients up and sending nutrients down. And so even though my garden needs no water whatsoever, we really want to nurture the microbes that are growing in the garden. So, as counterintuitive as it may seem that I'm out here about to pour more liquid on my garden, it needs to be fed within the first 24 hours of making the compost tea. I picked it up late yesterday afternoon. It's early morning, so I'm out here going to feed. This one, though, that we're diluting is because the tomatoes and peppers are not getting the rain, and so we can dilute theirs and not have so much of it wash away. So let's fill our buckets. Oh, I just am reusing where I used these are the same buckets and stuff that I used for the biochar. So if you're curious as to what compost tea is and why we are using it, it literally is a concentrated version of compost that has now, you've taken all those good microbes and organisms and fungi and all of those fun guys and put them into a liquid. So you've extracted them into the water, and now you've kind of fed all of it. That's kind of the process of making compost tea, and you've multiplied the level of organisms that are in the compost, and you are now feeding it. Compost tea, when diluted, the plants actually like it fed on their foliage, meaning through the leaves, but you can certainly feed compost tea directly to the soil and lots of different ways, and then come back and refeed later. But don't confuse it. It isn't an actual fertilizer. It did continue to rain, and so I did the 1 gallon for like 3 beds, and it's something like 10 to 20 gallons of compost per acre is what you can feed. And so as it continued to rain, the ground was so wet, it does dilute the compost tea. But like I said, because it's microbes and it's not a fertilizer, you can feed direct compost tea to a sick plant, but you would need to do some research and make sure that that was the right step for your plant. So I decided I would plant out what onions I have left. I did space out a row for the peas and beans and those sort of things, because they're supposed to like escape over the center of the garden if we get, you know, enough sun and weather for that. So I am just going to, not all of them look great, because we have to buy things. They come into the state kind of early, obviously because other parts of the country can grow. And we wait and we wait. And I was talking to Ellie yesterday, and she said, well, you just wait for Memorial Day, and apparently you just keep on waiting. So here we are, keep on waiting to plant out our gardens completely. So I think one of the mistakes I made with onions last year was we planted them too deep, we planted them too late, we planted them too wet of soil. This soil, at least it doesn't super compact. And not only that, because it's a huge layer of compost on top, it also doesn't, like, it runs off really well. So it is all wet right now though, but it is where we are at. And I need this off of my shoulders. So onions, in comparison to like turnips and radishes and maybe all of the other things that you would plant, we eat a ton of onion in our house. And so I want to not waste the opportunity to at least try. I did so terribly last year, but at least try to plant onions. So So this is more of a traditional, you know, you have rows and you plant out like things. This is not how the other garden beds are. So I thought I would just jump and share with you from the map what's actually in these other garden beds. As you can see here, I made a map for all of the garden beds. Now, they're not exactly identical as they are planted out because I would take this map and flip it upside down or backwards or invert it. But the rows go in the same order, and the things that are in the rows also go in the same order. And so we'll just call it row number 1. We have snap peas, and then shell peas, snow peas, green beans, yellow beans, red beans. Row number 2, we have 2 square foot of celery and at least 4 square foot of carrots. And then the next row, we have parsnips and cabbage and kohlrabi, Brussels sprouts, artichokes, cabbage. The following row we have broccoli, cauliflower, cabbage, broccoli, cabbage, cauliflower, so they're kind of intermingled. Then we have kale, mustard, spinach, collard, Swiss, and again some more kale. The following one we have mustard, spinach, arugula, endive, collards, and Swiss. Then we have rutabaga, radish, turnips, cabbage, and beets, shallots, leeks, green onions, and then regular onions, whether they are red or white or the different kinds. Then we have a couple square feet of broccoli, as well as some quick growing salad lettuces, some cauliflower, and then in the vining sort of row, we have some yellow squash, some regular squash, and each bed has its own kind of squash, cucumbers, zucchini, melons, and pumpkins, and again, in each bed, there are different varieties of those things. Now, I did move on and start planting out the tomatoes as well as the peppers. I am separating them by like items with like items. I already can tell you that next year, and of course it will be different next year. Of course it'll be warmer earlier with no frost and without all of the rain and the cold. And so when I start my tomatoes next year, I am going to start them 2 weeks later than I did this year, so that I don't have them so long and lanky like they are. However, they are doing fine. I am telling Aaron, because he keeps saying, are they going to grow? They look so bad. And I said, I just have to keep the faith and remember that last year I had a couple of tomato plants that looked so horrible, just like my tomatoes are looking now. I kept feeding them, I kept watering them, and I just let them do their thing. And those were my 2 biggest producing tomato plants. So the faith is difficult. However, it is there. And I believe by, again, planting the tomatoes deeper, letting the roots grow, and then I use this specifically tomato twine. It has little hairs and fur on it so that the little hairs on the tomato will kind of crawl up this vine, and for each one I kind of bury the tomato twine, and then I run the twine up, and then it's so easy as the tomatoes grow. I continue to just wrap them around that twine, and they should trellis up on their own. I did divide it out, however, with tomatoes on this side of the trellis, or tomatoes that are supposed to grow in the temperatures and the weather that we have here in Alaska. These are outdoor Alaska tomatoes. Because I still don't have my greenhouse yet, under the plastic tarp are going to go the tomatoes that are not intended to grow outside in Alaska, so we can kind of trap some heat and stuff in those. But let's get back to the fence. I couldn't have done this. In fact, I tried without Aaron and Caleb. This, however, is not the end-all be-all for the fence for the chickens. Come fall, maybe spring, at some point we will actually build something incredible for them. But right now I just need to keep them in and out of the plants that we're trying to grow in order to harvest. And I may need to even do some netting above it, protection, several other things. I'll keep you apprised if we change things, because I know some of you watch to get inspiration here in Alaska of keeping chickens or gardening or any of those fun things. With that, thank you for being here today. I cannot believe that you guys still continue to show up and support our family. We are so extremely grateful for every single one of you. I hope that you consider to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell. Give us thumbs up and comments. Those things do help our channel to grow. I'm so blessed to have each and every one of you here. Thank you. And until next time, I will see you in the next video.